Okay, we're going to talk about legal descriptions. This is an important part of the survey process, and a couple parts about the history of legal descriptions and how we use them today. When we're talking about a legal description, it's a written passage or statement that defines a property, and it's descriptive enough for someone to find it without, like this says, without any other evidence. So these are the three that we're going to talk about today: meets and bounds, a rectangular survey system, and what's called a lot and block. So these are the old system used with the original 13 states, rectangular survey with the remaining states, lot and block used in conjunction kind of with the two. Meets and bounds. This is interesting. It's interesting to understand how they could have possibly how people could have possibly understood with any kind of accuracy where land boundaries are. So let's get into it. Meet. So the meet, just as it says, boundary described by a distance and direction between property corners, north 30 degrees, west a distance of 567 feet. Bound, that's a boundary that's described less accurately, something like this, along the stone wall. And then we have a POB, or point of beginning, a place for which you would start to find whatever this property boundary is. This is a great example. From the POB, proceed north 67 degrees, 35 minutes, along each said right-of-way line of State Road number 1, a distance of 120 feet. You can see how there could be some confusion there. Lines are described with respect to natural or artificial monuments and baselines. Line length is measured along a level plane. Directions are described using bearing angles with respect to the previous line. So early meets and bounds were actually used with this chain. So one chain was 100 links, or 4 rods, or 66 feet. Today lengths are usually given in decimal feet, something we're a lot more used to. 315.75 feet. We don't use inches. That's something you might use when you're working on a house or a length of a wall, but not in surveying. Okay, bearings. Deviation measured in degrees, minutes, and seconds from a known line or direction. I'll explain this in more detail in a minute. North 25 degrees, 35 minutes, and 12 seconds east. Okay? Or south 22 degrees, 35 minutes west. 1 degree is 60 minutes. 1 minute is 60 seconds. And what that might look like, here's north. Here's that 25 degrees, 35 minutes. And from the south, here's 22 degrees, 35 minutes. Here's a great example. I believe this is that same one. So from our POB, proceed, here we go, 67 degrees, 35 minutes east along the right-of-way of State Road number 1, a distance of 120 feet. That makes sense. Then when I get to that 120 feet, I think it gives us some more directions. Then from there, 12 degrees, 45 minutes, a distance of 67 feet. See, north 12 degrees, 45 minutes west, a distance of 67 feet. And then from there, we would find whatever property line we were looking for. And here's kind of a longer one to do a perimeter of maybe someone's property. All right, so then we get into rectangular survey. We have Thomas Jefferson to credit this. Designed for the organization, division, and sale of government-owned frontier land. Think around the time of Thomas Jefferson, westward expansion, lots of property being not only discovered but bought and sold. So we have these meridians. The reason I remember this one, at least from Utah, Montana. Montana is north and Mexico is south. That's kind of how I remember that one. And I just remember the one, and then I know that baseline is going to be left and right. So you split the country up into some of these prime meridians. You can see some here, here, here. Oh, here's a good one. Here's a baseline right where it meets a meridian line. So they're much larger tracts of land all over the country. Here's kind of a close-up of the Northwest. Let's see, yeah, here's a baseline. This one's called the Boise Meridian. So from there, then we have range lines. So my meridian lines are broken up into some smaller range lines. And then my township, or excuse me, my baseline is divided up into township lines that run east-west. Okay, now we get into some smaller areas. This map is commonly seen on my quizzes and on the final. So you'll notice Township 1 North, Range 1 West. We are 1 township north, and we are 1 range west from where this baseline and this meridian intersect. Each township is 36 sections, so each of these townships, if I were to split that up, I'd get 36 sections. It's also important to know that it goes from right to left and then kind of snakes across. If you've ever heard the expression the back 40, like, oh, I don't want to go find that horse, he always is way in the back 40, like the far back end of the property. That's where that expression came from. It's because each of these townships only has 36 sections, not 40. That's why we might say the back 40. Each section can be broken up. It's a square mile, or 640 acres. You can have half section, which would be 320 acres, a quarter section. You can break up a quarter into a couple different ways. These partial sections, so notice we are looking at the southeast quarter, right? Southeast quarter of this larger northwest section. Let's do another one. Southwest quarter, northwest, southwest quarter of the northwest quarter, northwest quarter of the northwest quarter, and so on and so on. This one is the east half of the southeast quarter of this entire section. Yeah, northwest quarter, and then you just go through an example. This is a great picture because you see this a lot if you've flown on a plane. Especially, well, really everywhere, but especially in less mountainous regions. If you've flown over parts of the South or the Midwest or back east, you'll see these very rectangular sections, and that's what they are. Yeah, so there's that one section, which is what was that, 640? Yeah, 640 acres, or 1 square mile. Next time you're in a plane, and that's 1 square mile. So here's what you're likely to see on my quiz and on the final. You'll have to identify. You'll be given some description, and you have to identify it. So let's go through this. So notice this third principal meridian. Again, so we're going from larger to more specific. And let's see, Township 1 South. And just before I click it, see if you can find Township 1 South, Range 1 East of the third principal meridian. Remember, this would be our principal meridian, that darker black line right there. And from that, we need to find section 25. Within section 25, remember that's that 1 square mile. Within section 25, looks like we're looking for the south half of the northwest quarter. Try to envision that in your head. South half of the northwest quarter. And we are looking at the south half of the northwest quarter. Remember, half. So south half of the northwest quarter. And from there, we kind of use both systems a little bit for this lot and block system. Last one, we'll go through this real quick. Provides for subdivisions of a tract divided into blocks consisting of many individual lots that inspire the term. You might live in a subdivision, right? Quail Oaks or Fox Estates. Those are subdivisions, and that's where it gets its name from. Legal description recorded as a lot number and block number of the named subdivision. It's used with meets and bounds and rectangular survey description, so it's kind of a hybrid of both. And this would be kind of an example. Sometimes you can find plat maps. Plat maps are online. You can see written descriptions of your own property. It's kind of interesting to see. So like it said, it will give you, from the northwest corner, it's like your POB for meets and bounds, your principal or your point of beginning, and then from there it will have it might have degrees and minutes to accurately as it can explain lot number 34, and then on this plat map it says the dimensions of it. It might say so here's 70 feet, 70 feet, 70 feet. It might say 140 feet from, what is this, Chuck Wagon Road, and then it would go and describe this area more accurately. Okay, for your quiz, make sure, especially these type questions that we did, like this one. Yeah, make sure you can do that for your quiz, and you should be good to go.